What is going on, everybody? This is Patty XRP, and this is the DeFi Standard. And how are we doing today, Mickey?
We're doing great. A very good day. So we want to give a news update to everybody about the Flare Network and what's going on first. So Patty, if you want to take it away, what Hugo put out early this morning about the governance proposals, that he has rescinded them and things will be staying the way they are.
Absolutely. So, yeah,
I'm very
basically,
happy about this.
yes, definitely. What we have been talking about this whole time on our channel and our website and everything, and communicating with you guys and all the work we've kind of been doing together as a group to, best plan for how to utilize the Flare network, learn about it, and kind of become a part of this new economy that's going to grow. We are going with the original distribution plan. So you'll get your 15% at launch, and then you'll get around an average of 3% every month subsequent to that. Additionally, there'll be an opt in or opt out option. So if you're worried about tax implications about the Spark airdrop in any of the future drops where there will be a price for the Spark token, well, you certainly now have the ability to opt out of that, which, I really wish they just would have gone with that plan from the beginning. I think it was a mistake to propose this governance vote, especially when the Flare Network team meticulously planned this project for many years now. And, it just kind of, they set it up in a very specific way. Now, some people may disagree with that. And I think we saw that with, just whoever wanted to vote for getting all the Spark tokens at once. That's kind of a different view on how the network should go than what we've had, which is fine. It's also different than what the Flare teams had. And I kind of have more trust in their ability to analyze what's the best way to distribute the token, the native asset, really Spark, for the network that they're launching. But yeah, I'm with you, Mickey. This is I think this is really great that he walked it back. While the optics are definitely not great, I am not doubting that. And I'm sure there'll be some people that don't want to participate in the Flare network anymore because of this. I can't sit here and say that maybe it doesn't take a little hit out the get go, but we got to remember, we're launching, uh, an entire new system for people to use. It's like a brand new economy in a sense. And there's going to be issues. We just got a taste of one. Hopefully, this is one of the bigger issues that we have. And, we don't have to do any voting on something going wrong when the network goes live. But I think this also gave everybody a taste that this network is really flexible in the way that we are able to govern it. So, somebody could definitely make a proposal after launch saying, hey, we actually want to do this option too. And there may be a proposal thrown out there and people will vote on that, but it's not going to be initiated automatically. It'll have to be more grassroots from somebody in the community, and they'll have to find a way to obtain enough votes to do that. But I think for now, we're pretty safe planning with the original airdrop distribution plan in mind. So I'll let you take it from there, Mickey.
Sure. Yeah. So everything you covered, a lot of ground right there. So another thing is that they're launching a decentralized blockchain network here. This is not a DApp. This is not a product like a CFI. We have not invested in Flare in any way. Nobody has done an ICO. Nobody's put up money. So the creators of the network have the centralized power prior to the network going live. And that's okay, because that's how these networks are designed. Somebody has to design them. But once the network actually goes live, the community will be governing the network. And I think we kind of got a little taste of what that's going to be like. So in the future, we see that it's community governance. But if anyone's like upset about like Hugo pulling it back, I understand that, it was a little confusing, but it is their right to do that. It's their network that they built. You're getting free tokens. It's not something that you invested into. You had a choice to claim or not claim. Now you'll have a choice to opt into that additional 3% or not. But now regarding that other 3%, everyone should know, though, that the inflation mechanism of the FTSO rewards is set up at 10% of 100 billion every month. So that other 3%, people were saying, oh, it's going to put sell pressure on. 10% of 100 billion is coming out every month anyway. And that's going to go to those who participate. So just like this 3%, I don't see putting downward selling pressure, because it's going to go to those who already have a stake in the network, and you're going to be able to use those Spark tokens to delegate to FTSO providers to earn more Spark. So that's going to limit the actual, so-called dumping on the market. But at the same time, it does provide liquidity to the market, and it is designed by Flare like this for a specific reason. So lowering the supply that doesn't exist yet would have not pushed the price of Spark up. In my opinion, it would have had zero effect. When you're burning something that doesn't exist yet of a supply, it doesn't push the price up or create scarcity. That was like a null argument. Everything else aside, that argument, I just made no sense. Because look at when Stellar burned their supply that wasn't circulating. What did it do for the price? Absolutely nothing. So burning the supply of something that doesn't exist circulating will not push the price of Spark up. So it's not like, oh, the Spark price is going to be lower now because of that. That circulating wouldn't have existed anyway, that 85%. So we're back to the original plan, which I think is great, because it's something many of us have been preparing for. And now everything stays the same. You're going to opt in, you make a small payment. How they said, if you opt out, you opt out of 3%. Now you have a choice. They're still designing the networks. These things aren't perfect, and they're a work in progress. They're decentralized networks that they're releasing out to the wild. They're just designing it, but they're not the CEO of the Flare network. He's the CEO of the Flare Limited, who's the team that's building it. So once it's released, it's out of their hands. So they need to have, design and control in the beginning. I think he made a little mistake, and Hugo did say that he made a mistake putting the proposals out there early, and he pulled it back in 2 days. So it'll just be a blip on the radar in the history of Flare.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, so I mean, I see some comments around like adult in the room. This was pretty funny. Governance is a glitch in the system so far.
Well,
uh,
people want decentralization, but decentralization comes with governance. And I think,
yeah,
that was a little wake up call that if something's going to be decentralized, it still needs governance. And that means community governance. So, we all want decentralization. But with that, you got to govern the network still. And that means a lot of stakeholders govern the network. And that's what we are, the community. So, you can't have decentralization without governance. Otherwise, then you have Bitcoin. And look what that's brought.
yeah. And to add on here, so I saw Joss and Lantern talking about the liquid democracy aspect, which, like, since this is launched, or sorry, this proposal had been put out before any tokens are available, the liquid democracy aspect allows you to just delegate your vote to some individual or party that you want to represent you when governance proposals are voted on. So it's like, all right, is that not something you want to deal with again? You can find somebody if they're allowing you to delegate your votes to them, in order to have them vote on your behalf. Similar to in the U.S. how we have a representative system. We vote in a politician, and then they vote on our behalf. However, with this model, you don't have to go with whoever the majority decides in your like little jurisdiction that you live in. So I think that's a nice thing. Like part of this that we really don't have to have like a full on. It just felt like way too much going on around this whole conversation, way too early. We weren't even going to be able to vote on this until, probably at least a month from now, just because the Flare network's not live and isn't going to be going live till July at some point. So I think it'll be different in the future. This was also already a really hot topic debate in the community around it. So I'm glad that we can kind of set this aside. There's definitely some criticism on how it should have been handled. I totally get that. And ultimately, some people are not going to want it to participate in the network because of it, and that's okay. These things aren't always going to be perfect. But to me, the original design of how the incentives are laid out are still intact. So I still have you know, my vision of how the network is going to go is still kind of in line with what I had been thinking. When you just shrink 85% of the supply, to me, that seems very meme coiny to me. So, there's no like legitimate asset out there where the supply just gets randomly increased by 85%. When Stellar did this, which was very similar because both of the tokens in Stellar's case that were burned were not in the circulating supply. And in the case of Flare for this, it wouldn't have been circulating supply either. Also, you have the future value of money, so it's not going to be a direct one-to-one price appreciation for how much of the supply was decreased, which is kind of my biggest issue with burning it as well. And then it also just messes up the timeline of how the rewards are being doled out, and all that. But if you still think that the supply should be shrunk and somebody proposes it, by all means, go ahead and vote for it. But at least we don't have to have this be an ongoing discussion
Hmm.
for now until that's brought up. And I think, like you said, this will be forgotten a few months into the network's launch.
Yep. There's other things that are going to come up. So at least we got this out of the way. Like you said, if somebody brings it up, they bring it up. They're going to have to get a 66% supermajority, which is going to be very difficult to get. I think the way the Flare network is set up right now is brilliant. It's designed around these reward systems. So anyone who has a problem receiving the 3% every month, you're going to be receiving all types of other rewards that are going to fall into the same category. It's like saying, well, I don't want to work because I got to pay taxes. I mean, you know, that makes no sense to me. And we are not financial advisors, Patty or I, and we are not tax consultants, but we are just throwing our opinions out there on how we feel. But you should not take that as financial advice in any way.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, you're going to get rewards all month long by the FTSO. So, the FTSO, you're going to delegate your vote, and you're going to continue compounding. So, what you have to do, let's bring this up now, Patty, is that to delegate your vote, you need to, in your Bifrost wallet or Decent, whatever software app supports the Flare integration, you will have to turn it into WFlare to delegate it to an FTSO provider, which will be fairly seamless process inside the wallet. And that gives it smart contract capabilities because the native asset itself doesn't have the delegation function. It's the native asset. That's what Spark is. So by creating it to WFlare, you could then delegate it to a signal provider, and you could get 3 different signal providers you could delegate to, and it's based on percentage. So you could do 33%, 33%, 33%, or 50%, 25, and 25. And you could change those per day. And you earn the Spark daily, or it might even be more than daily. We're not sure yet on the details of that, but you'll be earning them in a short time interval. So they'll auto compound for you. So that by having it as WFlare, people can't trade it on exchanges and simultaneously earn rewards. So what this does is it pulls the supply off of the exchanges. Because if you want to delegate and participate, you got to wrap it to WFlare, which will be simple in the wallet. Or if you're on an exchange, you have to delegate it to that exchange, who will then delegate it to a signal provider, or they're the signal provider themselves. So this removes supply from the market. And this is a market mechanism design that it seemed like a lot of the community didn't see. They were just so concerned with scarcity, which doesn't apply to supply that doesn't exist on the market. This market mechanism design will actually create more demand and create a higher value for Spark. Plus, you also have the Spark that will get staked for the F asset system when that goes live roughly 8 weeks after launch. So these are the designs that will drive the price, not scarcity.
Yeah, that's like a very old model to me of how cryptos have been set up. So like obviously Bitcoin's super successful and it's pretty scarce compared to a lot of other assets. But to me is like, people can say it's like, okay, owning 0.001 of a Bitcoin for X amount of dollar value is the same as owning like, 100 of some other asset for the same dollar value. But the thing is like when you're trying to attract other, you know, groups of people and not just like forward thinkers that are in the crypto space right now, and you try and go and get normal people off the street to participate in this stuff, are they going to be able to relate to utilizing and owning 0.001 of a Bitcoin, or are they going to relate more to utilizing some asset that's maybe worth $5 and having a lot more of it? I think that's a that can be put up for debate, and I totally understand if you think it doesn't matter that much. But I do think some of the psychology of this stuff, getting it to a level where like just your everyday person can start understanding it, like they can understand a dollar. So I think it has more benefits in regards to DeFi. Bitcoin is its own thing. It does proof of work. It's going for different use cases. So like I think that's fine. Um, but to me, the way Flare is being set up, it's supposed to have like cheap transaction fees, cheap gas fees. So to me, having a larger token supply just makes sense from a psychological standpoint. And then also, we can kind of move it into this. So if you guys haven't been following us, as long, Mickey and I, like one of our big things we had gotten into researching over the past 6 months is like mechanism design and incentives, which is kind of what we have preached on Flare. So when we go from having this very meticulously planned distribution schedule and the way the incentives are layered to align with that, and then also make sure like the liquidity for the F asset system was already planned out in a way from them analyzing what they think will happen and running scenarios. And then on top of that, as far as the FTSO and the rates and getting people to participate, they wanted the yield from the FTSO to be the highest at the beginning. But now if you drop all the tokens, it changes the how the yield's going to work over time. So that's something that messes with the system. So I don't know. I feel like maybe people didn't understand like
Hmm.
how meticulous this was all planned out as far as from a game theory incentive structure standpoint. So I'm glad that we are going back, to the original plan, and we can just focus on some other things because there's a lot more for us to learn in the meantime before the network goes live, and this at
Hmm.
least takes that off all our plates.
Yeah, one of the thing was the general rewards pools would have been shrunken to 15% of what they are going to be now. So they would have been 20 to 25 billion in there. That would have been shrunken 15%. And that would have been used to incentivize minting of F assets. Now, Spark's price would have no way appreciated to match that. So the problem here would have been the incentives would have been decreased massively for minting F assets. And some people, I guess, in the community or on YouTube just didn't understand the network and were pushing a scarcity narrative. But that's what happens when you don't understand the network and then put in the work. I'm not going to call anybody out by names, but it is a very complex, complicated network. And I understand that. And it's not very easy to understand right away. But when you're pushing a certain narrative, you need to understand all the facts. And what we try to do here at this channel is try to present all the facts of the network, how it's operated, so then you can make the best decision based on those facts. But if you're missing a whole grouping of facts, you could come to a whole different, plan or ideology on how you think this should work if you don't know how those facts of the network work. And that's what we saw happen in the last day or two.
Yep. Nice. And so, kind of just to address a little bit of the chat. So, people wondering about the opt out. This is something that I don't know what the plans are for Spark that gets opted out of. Mickey and I think personally the best thing to do would be to put those Spark tokens into the general F asset rewards pool. So, anybody that chooses to opt out of future Spark distributions,
Mm-hmm.
it would just go to that pool. I think a lot of people would like that. At least it redistributes those tokens to people participating. Because I don't know if the volume, like let's say they decide to burn tokens that people opt out of. Like I just don't know what that's doing for the network. It's kind of like when we talk about the XRP escrow. It's not always about the dollar value of that XRP escrow. It's about what kind of incentives can you lay out to get people involved in the network and using it. And, a lot of people, like, especially if you're coming from XRP like us, is like we preach about utility, which, is still not really here that much. But, like, how can you increase utility, which ultimately increases demand for the native asset of a network, and then just kind of use that to guide it rather than if we just distribute it all at once. To me, it turns the whole network into more of a crapshoot, and we're just throwing it all out there and saying, okay, if people like this, they'll use it. Well, the way that Flare Networks is setting up is people aren't always going to be able to recognize what may be the best thing to use. You know, it's very hard. There's a ton of projects. There may be great projects that none of us have ever heard about that never see the light of day because they don't get enough people to utilize their network. So to me, as far as attracting other communities like Litecoin, Dogecoin, Stellar, Algorand, Bitcoin in the future, we need like this kind of incentive structure for them to want to come over and utilize the network, because the XRP community is not enough to make this network, get off the ground running in the right way. So that's kind of why we like how they have this distribution. And I'll add, so like, fair point people have, if you have a, every month 3% roughly gets released to new people, you're like, oh, well, people are going to sell every month. I mean, yes, they are, but also you're going to have people that see that, oh, wow, I sold the last month's airdrop, but look, all these people are making a lot of yield on their Spark token. The Spark token's actually gone up in price. Why would I sell this thing? Everything looks good around it. And now it's
Exactly.
kind of like, imagine like Coca-Cola, you see their advertisements everywhere, and eventually it gets in your head, oh, I want to buy a Coke. Well, if you see, basically every month in your wallet, you go, oh, here's this flare, and it's essentially an advertisement almost. It's making you recognize it if you see it in your wallet, and now you have to basically, understand what's going on. So,
Exactly.
um,
And you'll also be earning, people will see others earning rewards with this. And that's the thing here now. So everyone's like, oh, 3%. Now I got to pay, a tax on it and whatnot. But you're going to be earning rewards. People, 10% is the inflation rate that's going to go to those who participate. So that 3% is really just the distribution to the XRP holders long term. So I think it's actually important because it keeps the XRP community involved. So if they don't see it the first few months, then after a couple months, they'll say, hey, wait, this person's making how much with their Spark every month? And they're making compounding it. So it will give a chance for people to come back in. And we also do have to remember here that the Flare community is not the XRP community. The XRP community is going to be part of the Flare's foundational community, but Flare community itself is going to be different from the XRP community because there's going to be a governance structure, there's going to be voting. So there is overlap, but this is a new community being formed with new design mechanisms, and especially that. So anyone who's complaining like the 3%, oh, will cause selling pressure. It's like, whoa, wait, 10% is coming out already to the FTSO. Now, those people who are earning that 10%, they're not going to most likely sell it. They're going to say, wait, I could turn around and compound more yield with this. Why would I sell that?
yeah, absolutely. That's pretty hilarious, Alchemist. I'm not gonna say it, but that made me laugh. um, yeah, okay, so here's some feedback. Channing Smithson, so he said crapshoot sounds speculative. Please give facts, Patty, not opinions. We need to have math stated. If it doesn't need to be burned, we need facts. Okay, so let's talk about the stellar burn. And yeah, obviously when I'm saying a crapshoot, that's speculation. The network's not live. Like we can't definitively say if token burn would actually benefit the network more or not, but we're kind of outlining reasons why we think it wouldn't. But like there's, that's as much as we can do in this instance. So, and the reason I say crapshoot when you just put the whole supply out there at once is that you don't have this meticulous plan for how the rewards and incentives are going to be delivered anymore to the users. And now it's just throwing everything out there at once and seeing how people react to it instead of having an incentive laden system that's going to drive people's behavior through those incentives. It's kind of about the game theory. So hopefully that can clarify it for you. Um, you know, we can speculate, like you kind of have to do a little of that. Like I don't, there's no way for me to know what the spark price is going to be at launch, but you can take different things like in history, different ways of looking at it, comparing it to different networks that have launched and try and make an assumption. Now, as far as the facts go, well, there's certain facts about how the network works, and those are outlined in the blogs and the white paper, and that's often what we try and draw some of this stuff from. So hopefully
Yeah,
that helps
because
with what you were, if you're confused with what I was saying.
well, yeah,
Um,
because you're burning supply that won't be circulating at launch, regardless of what those three options would have been. So it wouldn't have affected the actual market. There wouldn't have been less supply on the market. anyway. So that's why we were saying it would have had to match those F asset reward pool decreases, and it wouldn't have matched. That is speculative, but it's kind of based on what would drive the Spark's value up at launch, just because there's less of a total supply. It's the circulating supply that affects the market. And by wrapping Flare to be W Flare, and that doesn't mean moving it across networks when I say wrapping, it just means for delegating. So when you're delegating your Spark, it takes it off the market. It removes it from being traded on secondary markets. And this is a good thing, because what this creates is storage demand. And you offer people yield. So now that's like one of the most important mechanism designs in the Flare network. And that's why Flare, I call a fourth generation compared to third generation, because you're able to offer yield to the user or the owner, and they're able to simultaneously utilize that token then in a dApp or any kind of application on Flare, or they could just hold possession of it. So it creates this storage demand that you don't have with XRP, you don't have with BTC, you don't have with Doge, you don't have with LTC. They don't come with this native built-in yield at no risk, and then the simultaneous ability to utilize it. That design mechanism is what's going to drive Spark's price. And then the utility of Spark to be used to stake as collateral on top of that is what creates the demand, not scarcity. Like just lowering the total supply will have null effect compared to those other things. That's what we're trying to get at here. These are mechanism designs that have been proven to create storage demand and create value. I mean, there's so much trading out there. By creating the FTSO vote, it removes those assets from being traded. So somebody's going to have to choose, do I want to swing trade this, or do I want to give up guaranteed yield? Guaranteed yield, and I keep compounding it, or I try to swing trade this. That's the difference between Spark and other assets that are out there.
Yeah, exactly. What Flare Network has, it's going to have multiple dApps on it. It's going to have built-in layer one yield. And, people are going to be faced with a decision to make like, okay, I see what other people are making here every time they get their 3% airdrop monthly. And I think that will reduce the overall selling pressure. Now, you could say that that's not going to have an effect, but that's part of the reason why I like how the Flare Network had it set up, is that people are just going to continually get a reminder every month, hey, you have these Spark tokens, just freshly delivered, you can use them or you can sell them. And I think the option to use them, if people see the potential to make money or yield off of their Spark token, they may be less likely to sell it in the future. Also, we do know that the Spark token for F assets to be minted is going to have to continuously be locked up in collateral. So even if there's selling pressure over time coming from these 3% monthly airdrops, you'd have to factor that against how much more Spark is being locked in collateral. So like if a lot of, let's say, billions and billions of dollars of F assets are being minted, well, dependent on the Spark price and the value of those F assets, a certain amount of Spark is going to have to be locked up. So we do have a pressure coming from the bottom side that's going to give a natural price floor. It may not be super high at the beginning, like it may only need to be a couple cents, that price floor, to facilitate the minting of F assets. But the fact is, there's different things going on in this kind of market being creative. And I just think a lot of those things maybe weren't taken into account originally, but there's just, there's a lot going on. I think, as a lot of you guys know, that's been following us for a while. So
Let's take some questions, Patty.
yeah, okay. So Channing, I see, has a good point here. And this may be a follow-up to some other people. He was like, Doge, XLM, Litecoin community won't have the opportunity to gain as much yield as all the XRP holders that were receiving the Spark tokens if we delivered it on day one. And that's one of the things that I definitely think should have been taken into account, because the we're going to need them to come into the network and participate in mint F assets to make this work. So kind of abstracting and giving us all our Spark tokens before they've even had a chance to buy any just does not seem like the best move. I think this is
And
more
it
equitable for the other communities
and it
this way.
lowers that F asset rewards pool dramatically. So those who minted F assets wouldn't have received nearly as much Spark for minting. So you would have to pay a fee, but then just for having F assets on Flare, you receive Spark. And that pool would have been cut to 15% from 100% of what it was. Now that the price would have never appreciated to match that. And that would have hurt everyone who wanted to mint FXRP and everyone who wanted to mint FDoge. And that's not really fair to them. So, you know, that would have messed with the whole dynamics of the system. So I agree with who just said that.
Oh, JK goes, is Yoshitaka Kitao paying income tax in Japan for his airdrop? That's pretty funny.
Well, yeah, well, you're going to pay. The thing is that it hasn't been determined if that is even going to be paid. So it's not like fact that you're going to have to pay income tax. The Flare team has done an analysis saying, and they're going to release a memo. So we have to wait for that. And even David Schwartz online, who was commenting with Hugo said, just wait till we release the analysis and the memo from the team at Harvard who put this together. Because if you're going to have to make a payment like a futures contract, you're going to be purchasing that allocation and you're going to have full ownership of that allocation in one address. It's not being delivered to you from a foreign company. It's not being delivered to you from Ripple. It's not a stable coin. And it's coming from the network itself. The decentralized blockchain network is airdropping you that allocation. No single entity is doing that. Not Ripple, not the Flare team. So we don't know that for sure. But besides putting that aside, all the yield you're going to earn is going to be income tax anyway. So I don't understand why people have such a problem with that when everything you're going to earn, everything in DeFi right now is considered yield that people earn. Anything is considered technically income tax then. So I don't see why there was such this debate over a big 3% every month being such an issue when all the yield and everything else, it's at the end of the year, you do your taxes and you add them up. You have a loss, you have a gain. I mean, it's like, I don't want to work because I have to pay income tax. I mean, it didn't make sense to me on that side. But the 3% should be covered, but we can't guarantee that with fact. And I can't say that with fact, that it's necessarily going to be no income tax. But I do trust the Flare network more than the Twitter accountants, because the Twitter accountants just don't seem to have the knowledge of the Flare network understood the way the Flare team does. So let's wait for their analysis on the income tax thing. But do remember that any type of yield you're going to earn, it's going to come along with that. But you don't pay income tax the month you get it, pay it at the end of the year. And I'm not a tax advisor, and this is not tax advice, but it's something that I think people should understand a little before, you know, certain people have ulterior motives due to sponsors and other things.
Yeah. I mean, like you're saying, like you have an opportunity to earn yield with the spark that you get immediately. So that should lessen the tax burden. And, I would imagine
Exactly.
most people aren't paying more than like 35% on their income tax, at least in the US. So the price would need to decrease by more than 35%, or sorry, more than 65% from the point that you got it for, you to start losing money on receiving that, which is a large gap for it to fall. And also, if you're sitting there and actively participating, well, that's going to also cut into how far it needs to fall. So I think there's ways to get around this that you can work out. And I mean, like all of us are going to have different accountants and things like that, or, different ways of dealing with this. It's just like, how much of the United States community actually is getting the Spark airdrop. Like we kind of see that most of the XRP trading happens outside of the US. So I think the minority, while it's like a loud minority in the US around the XRP community, just because like, YouTube's in America and stuff like that. Most people speak English. So, English speaking YouTubers have a greater chance at getting a larger market and, people that follow them. So, it's just kind of, I think, like to hurt and JK. So I saw you follow up with you weren't joking about Yoshitaka Kitao. I don't know exactly how Japan does airdrop laws, but a lot of other countries don't tax them as income, and it's pretty clear. So
Well,
it's more of a like, what was it,
we could.
Australia and US issue mainly?
Well, let's go into that a little, Patty, for a second, because
Okay.
SBI is giving out XRP as like rewards for dividends for their stock. They're paying also their esports players with it, but they're giving it as part of a stock reward. So how is that going to be taxed? So I don't know how Japan's is. Japan has a full framework for digital assets. The US doesn't have a framework yet. So in 2 to 3 years or a year, the total laws could change on the taxes for what they are right now once we get a regulatory framework. So it's not like those are set in stone right now. They actually might get better over time, and we might have a clear framework. We don't know yet. The US laws are all over the place. Every regulator wants to do their own thing. So I don't know if Yoshi's thing of how the things are set up in that country, but I know they are giving away XRP to their stockholders if they have a certain amount. So they're obviously using XRP in a similar way. I mean, I know it's different than Spark, but it's still a digital asset, and they are distributing it.
Nice. I do want to throw out there just for later today. We have a video coming out on impermanent loss and liquidity pools, and then kind of how those interplay in the Flare X ecosystem from Flare Finance. So if you guys, I know we've talked about impermanent loss a lot, but haven't like really gone in depth. Highly suggest you check out that video later. I think it will help you with like impermanent loss. I feel like a lot of people view it as scary, but to me, it's not as scary if you understand the effects of it and what strategies can be employed with it. So I kind of got into that in that video. Also, there are some methods that people use for hedging impermanent loss while they're utilizing liquidity pools. So I'm going to do more research on those, and we can follow up in a video with that. I just wanted to let you guys know. That's going to be going on. And there's a lot of composable pieces out here in DeFi, Mickey, and there's just a lot of different strategies that can be employed. So, I mean, now that we can kind of get away from this, we want to start getting into more of like, what kind of strategies can we employ, like get people in the mindset of thinking, how can I best utilize my capital to earn many yield streams, and then also like the best way like you could even use loans and stuff. Like one of the cool surprises from the Flare white paper was that they're gonna deliver 1,000 YFIN over the course of 2 years.
Flare
So,
Finance.
sorry, did I say Flare Network? Flare Finance. They'll be delivering YFIN through the Flare Loans platform to both borrowers and lenders. So you could technically be a borrower earning YFIN for at least 2 years. Like you could either utilize the loan that you take out and put it into some other yield bearing product on the Flare Finance, or you could utilize that YFIN that you're getting given to you and pay off that loan. Like obviously we're gonna have to look at rates and see how all those things apply, but we'll kind of like continually do that over time before everything launches. And the nice thing, like, I mean, honestly, Mickey, I think you agree with me, like middle of July is probably like the earliest this thing launches. So we still have a lot of time to keep covering stuff. And it's just nice to know we have a lot of options on how to do stuff. There's a lot of new information that's come out with Trustline on what they're working with that I know we haven't talked about as much, Mickey. So maybe we can do a video next week on them with some of the new
Yes.
things going
Yes.
on. But like briefly, they're going to have he's working on having multiple stable coins that are pegged to different fiat currencies. They're also looking at creating a liquidity pool or multiple of them where you can supply currents like stable coins pegged to currencies. You can supply those there and earn fee. There's not really any impermanent loss in that situation, as the stable coins are going to be right around $1. If it is, if one's like at $1.01, that's a really, really minimal impermanent loss. And, I would bet that the fees probably outweigh it if you stay in there for any amount of time. So there's a lot of cool things going on. Like, now we're going to have that metaverse project or the NFT marketplace from 888 Crypto that obviously has like, a lot of big names in the NFT space. Gala Games just put out some stuff around
Gala Game
their
just
nodes, and they
they
partnered with Flare
partnered.
Finance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they partnered officially with Flare Finance here. So that's great to hear for everyone who is looking at Gala.
Yeah.
So that means the
Absolutely.
Gala token will be used in all the Flare Finance products, which is great. Sorry to cut you off there, but
Oh,
I
no,
did want to
good. Yeah,
just
definitely
stress that
touch on that.
DeFi, this is the future. Like where we're going with crypto here, DeFi is the foundational infrastructure for the next generation financial system. Like this is it here. Like it's not coming from the CBDCs. It's not coming from necessarily central banks. This innovation always happens in the private sector. And it's happening at a warp speed right now in the private sector. And we're going to see tokenization mixed in here. Once we start seeing tokenization and security tokens mixed in with DeFi, it's going to open up a whole new level of products that we can't even imagine. Like David Schwartz said, and Matt Hamilton, with the sidechains, we don't even know what's possible with them. But it's important to understand that DeFi is kind of the foundation. This is where the next generation financial system is going to come from. It's not going to be from some IMF or central bank. They're going to just wind up adopting this technology and this programmable money in the future. So I think that's important to note here, that 99% of the tokens are not going away. Like, I think that's pretty clear to anyone who's following the industry right now. Many of these things are, if they are decentralized, the dApps, if not all are, and the network and the underlying blockchains are decentralized, they're not going away. They can conform to KYC, they can conform to AML, identity, and all those things will have self-sovereign identity. So the market, what we see now in trading and everything, is speculative. But utility is going to come with DeFi and other types of things like decentralized exchanges. David Schwartz said is one of the first few real utilities for, smart contracts. And we're just at the beginning. So this market and this industry is just going to keep progressing for the next decade. So it's not like we get to moon and that's it, or we get to XRPs used for bridging CBDCs and it's game over. Like, I personally think we're a little ways away from that. And even David Schwartz said, so all these other things like DeFi and earning yield is going to be the next phase of the whole market in general. That's why it's so important to learn now and participate, because you're going to be ahead of everybody else in the future, and especially the next year or two is going to be really big in DeFi as institutionals come in. And Flare is a great platform since it's designed in a way it will be appealing to institutional, to hedge funds, to smart money to come in to participate in. And we know the Flare Limited is backed by some big heavy hitters. So that adds to the credibility here. But as a community, we have to understand this isn't just like free money that you dump. Like, if that's the case, then then you're really not going to be participating in the network and you won't have a voice. So anyone who sells their Flare token won't have governance. So what people say on Twitter, be careful, because that's not necessarily the majority. There's voting weight. So those who have more Spark tokens are going to have more of a weight in their vote, So that's important here to note.
That's a really good point, Mickey. Are people, you can kind of just do a thought exercise. Do you think people that are voting on a bunch of Twitter polls in regards to something, are they the ones that maybe are the large stakeholders in this
No.
space? I mean, I think some of them could be, but also a lot of them are not. And then obviously, like any institution that's going to own a good amount of Spark, they're probably not voting in any of that stuff. So just because we see, like, I don't think that option 2 was ever going to be able to pass, and neither option 1, because it had needed a super majority, and I could already tell it was split too much across the board. So also, I think like them removing this vote at least gives clarity now to what's going to happen, which I think is much better, because I think that vote could have dragged on for a while with people split on what they wanted. Because it was a very I think it was a very personal decision for people to make, because it has to do with their taxes and things like that. And it's not necessarily just like like the next big vote we would have is probably the F asset system going live, which that's going to be a much more straightforward thing. And that's about like, how quickly are we able to start utilizing F assets? And really what we'll have to take into account is like when the Flare Foundation does an analysis on if the ecosystem's ready to handle that kind of volume and value into it, then, that I think that'll be much easier to get through and all that. So it's definitely interesting. We got a taste of how it's going to work. I
We
think
got a taste, all right.
as a community, we'll have to organize, exactly how we can set up debates around this in the future for anything that's really controversial. That's going to be on us. We're going to be part of that. We're going to we'll find stakeholders with businesses and things like that in order to like, get these votes in a good place.
Well, I think the
So, yeah.
foundation should provide at least a forum for us to discuss the governance
Oh, yeah, I'd be
proposals.
shocked.
But if they
didn't.
don't, we're going to even add to our website, like we'd like to add in the future, a little message board or forum around governance. And I think that's something new to many of us, that we're actually able to participate in this. You could actually put a proposal. You could actually vote. It's not like just some entity telling you something and then following through with it. Once the network's live, it's live. That's it. It's on us, the community, and the governance. It's not on the Flare team. They're not going to be guiding anything. It's us. So I think that's like a wake-up call that to a lot of people and to us in general, even me, like participating in a governance like that means that we're not leaning on like a Ripple or leaning on anyone. It's leaning on ourselves and the whole, stakeholders. If the XRP community, we have the chance to get Spark. If people sell out, then you're giving away your keys to the kingdom and your participation. And there'll be less XRP community involved, and then other communities will come in, and it's going to turn into the Flare community anyway. But the XRP community has the ability to be the foundation. If you hand that away, then you're giving that up. So you need to decide what you want to do.
Yeah, that's excellent points. And I do want to pose a question for you guys in the chat, if you want to respond to this. So, obviously, I think as far as like a PR hit, it's very possible that this is negative. It's also possible that it got big enough on Twitter that, people that had not heard about Flare Networks now have heard about it. And maybe some of those people look into it and may try and enter the ecosystem. So, I think it's hard to tell right now whether the press was bad press that is actually good press or just straight up bad press. That'll be interesting. But do you guys think all the confusion that was thrown out in the last couple of days and then definitely going with the original distribution plan, do you think the Spark price may be lower than what you would have originally anticipated, which does, give you an opportunity if you are somebody that wanted to participate in the network for years to come? So, it's very possible that we may see more people selling, since it seems like a lot of people didn't like the original distribution plan. Maybe not a majority, but a good amount. And also, we're going to have people opting out now. So I think that opens the table for,
It gets rid
RS.
of weak hands
Yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
out of the way. Then they won't. So those people who don't want to participate or who have a loud negative voice, once they sell their tokens or once they opt out, they're now out of the whole community. They don't have a voice in governance. They don't have able to participate. So we will have this, like, I guess, I don't want to say purging, but I guess it
The
will just
purge.
eliminate, it will purge the weak hands out early on, and it will all go to the strong hands and those who do want to participate. And I think that's healthy. But the 3% every month allows people to come back. If they're like, oh, I made a mistake, you know what? This is something I do want to participate. Then at least they have their allocation coming to them. And that's what you get for owning XRP. That was your right that you get.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to add that as far as like, we're creating a new thing. Like the Flare community is going to be a new entity, and the Flare community is not going to entail everything that the XRP community is. We're going to have new types of stakeholders, people that have had different opinions on how things work in blockchain in the past. So we're creating something new here. The XRP community is going to be separate from the Flare community. And right now, they're intertwined a little more because we are the group that are getting the Spark airdrop. However, once some of the XRP community people that got it are start selling out, then they're not necessarily a part of what all of us want to build with this network. And I think the fact that we now understand how much flexibility that we have in governance, like we can truly make this what we want to make it. So, being somebody that participates early and earns a lot of Spark tokens, that has a lot of voting power, and you will have more say in the network as the future moves on, the more yield you compound. So I think it's very interesting. It's a new thing. It's different. Okay. So actually, here's a good question, Mickey. So somebody, I can't remember who it was earlier, asked, is Flare kind of like a side chain? And I would say,
No,
well,
no. Hugo specifically said
okay,
it's a
but
layer one.
yes, yes, but like in effect, what's happening is it's connected on the side to the XRP ledger.
Yes.
Now, the
Okay.
Flare network is like going to be extremely decentralized out the get go. And from our conversation with Matt Hamilton the other day, it definitely seems like a lot more work to get a side chain up to the level of decentralization needed. But I just kind of want to throw that out there that it works
Yeah,
on the
that's
side of it because he was saying how we could connect other blockchains kind of through this federator system to the XRP ledger. Now, what Flare is using is something called the state connector system, which is developed by the Flare team, and that's what allows for the two-way bridge between XRP ledger and Flare network. But like like in the I guess in a sense, it works similar in the fact that you can move assets from one to the other, but the structure of it is different in how it's set up. So that's
well,
kind
it's
of
truly
yeah.
trustless with the
Yeah.
Flare network.
Yeah.
So they replace this the federator system with the state connector system, which actually puts validator nodes on the XRP ledger, on Litecoin, on Stellar, on Doge, and then also on the Flare network. So it digests that data trustlessly and allows it to move. The XRP ledger side chains use a federator system where you have to trust that small group there. So it's a little different, but there is a unique thing, like Patty's saying, is that the Flare network has a two-way bridge to the XRP ledger. It doesn't have a two-way bridge to the other networks. So that's what allows you to put in FXRP as collateral or Spark and issue the RA stablecoin right onto your Zum wallet on the XRP ledger. That's what the power of that two-way bridge allows. And it also allows you to mint FXRP the other way.
Cool. Well, Mickey, my stream was going well until now. We got the most people in here. I lowered
Uh,
some stuff, so hopefully it's going to work. But I mean, we're 54 minutes in, so I think it could
yeah.
be a good point to wrap up. So,
Okay. Did
yeah,
everyone hear what I said?
I think they should be
Okay.
able to get it. Yeah, it's
All
not
right.
like
Any
as
last
bad as it's
question?
been. So,
Is there? All right. That's good. Yeah, we're going to continue to do streams and we're going to continue to pump out videos and we're going to continue to provide the facts of what the Flare network is. And now that this governance thing is behind us. So if you came in late, there's no more governance votes. There's no more options. It is staying as is. According to the Flare team, Hugo said they are rescinding all the governance options, which is their right because the network is not live yet. So it doesn't need to be decentralized prior to the network being live. They're the creators, they're the founders. They decide after the network's live. If somebody wants to put a proposal in for something different, they can, but that will be based on governance. So as of right now, if you came in late to the stream, there's no more options. It's just staying as is. You could opt in or opt out of the remaining 85%. You'll receive your 15% and you could opt in or opt out of that 85%. And that gives everyone a choice and options. If you don't want the other 3% every month, then opt out. And it will go to the rest of the people who do participate. All right, so that's that. At least that clears the way here. And we can move on with the Flare Network launch coming soon in the next month.
absolutely. So check out our video on impermanent loss coming out later today. I think I'll set it
Patty
for around.
exclusive.
Yeah, it is a Patty exclusive. So if you only want to hear Mickey, do not tune in for that. But you know, if you want me to show Mickey up, definitely hop in there.
No, Patty did a really good video on permanent loss. You should check it out because it's going to be, even if it's something that you're not, have even heard the word impermanent loss before, you barely heard it, listen to it because it's going to be something that's really important with decentralized exchanges. And those are going to be a part of the crypto ecosystem for years to come. So you should really understand this concept of impermanent loss. And it's a tool to be able to use he'll explain it in the video. You just watch the video.
Absolutely. So I hope everybody enjoys their Saturday. Glad we don't have to worry about this governance proposal anymore and we can focus on the fun things.
Yes.
So
earning yield.
Yeah. So this was the DeFi standard. I'm Patty XRP
I'm Mickey B. Fresh.
and we're out. See you guys. Take care.